Welcome to our social recruiting live session, Shop Till You Hire, the ultimate guide to unlock the power of social recruiting. And so with that, I'm going to go off camera until the end here. I'm going to kick it over to Natalie and she can get us started.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Callum. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Natalie Brody. I'm a Senior Client Success Manager here at CareerArc, as well as a Certified Employer Brand Strategist. I really love all things creative. I love employer branding. I really do love the power of relationship building, authentic relationship building, I should say, especially in business. I think that that's really what brings us together today. William and I used to work together, so we really understand the power of relationships and how even beyond maybe that candidate recruiter interaction or beyond that coworker interaction, you may just end up on a live webinar together one day. So I'm really excited for William to be our guest, and I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you, William, to introduce yourself.
Cool. Well, hi. Thank you, Natalie. And thank you so much to everybody who is joining us today. My name is William. I'm the Employer Brand and Marketing Specialist over at Ulta Beauty. So I work on our people success team. I find it to be quite a privilege to get to talk about beauty and making a space for everybody at Ulta Beauty. Formerly, in my past life, I was a client success manager and the social media specialist over at CareerArc. So there's a chance I've gotten to work with a lot of you who are chiming in today in the past. So I'm excited to be bringing some of my knowledge to you today, and I'm just excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this will be a really casual conversation today. Obviously, William and I are friends, so if we are giggling or go off topic, that is why. Just kidding. I've prepared some questions to make sure we stay on topic. I know William has a lot of really great knowledge to share with us, so I've strategically thought of these questions just to make sure that you all are getting the most value out of today. So we can just go ahead and get started. We'll start with the big picture.
Yeah.
William, what is an organic social recruiting program helping you and Ulta to address?
Yeah, for us at Ulta, I think first and foremost, it's a really great top of funnel solution. So the really cool thing about social recruitment is that one, it's affordable, and two, it can help you reach a really wide audience. So when I say a top of funnel solution, I'm just talking about sourcing and generating more interest in you as a brand and as an employer through the ease of use of social media. I often like to talk about social media as the billboard of today. You know, historically with print media, let's say billboards, flyers, mailers, etc. You were hoping that through connecting with people through this print media over multiple times and connections and touch points, after the 20 or so time they see that, they call you up when they want your product or your service. Social media allows us to get that same amount of touch points in a much more quick, condensed, and cost-effective way, which is super exciting. So it's a great way to generate a larger pool of talent. It's also a great way to reach a larger pool of people with your messaging centered around employer brand, your value proposition as a brand as well. But the other cool thing about social media, I'm hoping or assuming that all of us on here are at least casual users of social media, is that social does two really great things. First of all, it delivers content to you that is curated for you and your special interests. And on the flip side of that, it makes it really easy for you to actually search out content that is relative to you and your personal interest as well. And the reason that's important is because social media then becomes a really cost-effective tool to actually curate content to specific target audiences and to make sure that that content is first and foremost, or I should maybe say more likely to get to your target audience, that being based on their location, their interests, the jobs that they're wanting to look at. And so I think it's a really great top of funnel solution. It's a cost-effective solution. And social recruitment also, just from a reputation management and advancement standpoint, is also really great because you can get a lot of impressions on your social media that help drive social recruitment, that help drive your impressions, your engagement, and also get the good word out about why you as a employer are the place to be. So that's what I would say. Was that a good answer? Did I get the prize?
Yeah, you did. That's perfect. I always tell people, although you may pay for a contract with LinkedIn or you may pay for a contract with us at CareerArc, the power of organic social media is free. You could log on to LinkedIn right now and type whatever you want to type, put in a link, send people to a job in your career site. So Why aren't you leveraging one of these social sources or all of these social sources if you can? Because that part is essentially free and pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Can I actually talk about one more thing too that came
Please
to mind,
do.
which is just from like storytelling when it comes to social recruitment as well. When we think about recruitment in general, I think we often go to job boards, and oftentimes with job boards, the story that's being told is just the core job responsibility or the job description for that role. Social media and social recruitment, yes, it allows you to get jobs out, but it also allows you to apply some information about what the cultural experience might be. That way, candidates feel a little bit more confident hitting the apply button because they kind of get a better sense of what they're getting into. So I also wanted to touch on that as well, that it helps differentiate the strategy from a job board to social from a storytelling perspective.
I agree. You actually just made me think about companies that have a really powerful career site with a DEI tab, a culture tab, a benefit tab, all of that, take that and put it on social media as well.
Exactly.
Because you want to promote that information in as many places as you can. The demographic that a lot of companies are hiring for right now are on social media. They might not
100%.
make it to your career site to look through that great content. So let's get it in the feed in front of them. Absolutely.
100%.
Well, I think the question that most people today are probably looking for an answer to, how do you approach promoting your employer brand on social media?
Yeah, the for immediate answer is that we distribute employer brand content to our centralized page. For us, it's primarily LinkedIn, but we are, spoiler, working on expanding to other channels. I can't say too much too soon, but LinkedIn is our primary driver for storytelling from an employer brand perspective, alongside things like our career site. And also we do have a social recruitment centered Twitter. And then also sometimes we also will put content out on things like Glassdoor and Indeed as well, because those job boards do allow a function for content. And so the cool thing is, from a employer brand approach, we use the centralized page, LinkedIn, to talk about our employer brand, because not only does it allow our associates to engage with that content and share it out when it resonates with them, but it's also making sure that we're getting that audience out to prospective clients, or rather candidates in this context. So it's important to me that if somebody is coming to our LinkedIn page, they're not just seeing a job and a job description and an apply button. They're actually getting a sense of what the ins and out of our culture looks like. I want them to feel motivated to actually want to read through the full job description and get excited about the prospect of working with us. And then obviously, our centralized page cannot be the only thing that we're posting employer brand content to. There is a really vast amount of people out there that we need to reach. And at Ulta Beauty, we have the challenge, I suppose, that we've got the corporate side of things, but we're also a retailer. And because of that, we also have warehouses and distribution centers. So we're also really big in supply chain. So we've kind of got these three different spaces that we operate in that we need to be able to message about. So a big key to our success has been a multi-channel approach. And that has basically been me granting brand ambassadorship to anybody at Ulta Beauty who wants to talk about our employer brand. And so the way it started really easily for us was starting with our recruiters and getting them to actually share employer brand and social recruitment content out to their pages. Obviously, our recruiters are intended to be recruiting. And so getting them involved in the employer brand space is kind of the obvious first step to me when it comes to branching out. However, once you kind of get outside of your recruiters, well, what do? Well, for us, we have localized markets we want to support and to make sure we're speaking to as well. So I've been spending a lot of time making sure that we are cascading and building out our employer brand and social recruitment strategy to our district and regional level leadership as well for our field and our retail stores. So that would be regional managers, district managers, regional vice presidents, the whole 9 yards. They are also eager to actually play a role in spreading the good word of Ulta Beauty, and to also get the social recruitment game going, because they too have the incentive of getting quality candidates hired in their area. And what's an extra step great about this is when you're actually engaging your associates that are in those areas, hopefully their networks are actually also broad within that area, whether it's geographically or even if you're using somebody from a specific department or a focus, right? You can actually get the jobs curated to their needs based on location, based on the department that they support, to make sure that you're reaching an audience that actually cares about that content as well. And oftentimes people ask me, like, how do you incentivize getting people to participate in being a brand ambassador? And to be honest with you, maybe I'm spoiled. So shout out to everybody at Ulta Beauty who makes it very easy for me. But I think the buy-in is the outcome, right? It helps lower the cost of application. It's a cost-effective strategy to fulfill specific roles in your area. It's extra coverage and visibility for hard-to-fill roles that can be based on a department-based need or a regional need as well. And it's also getting directly, or rather more direct, to the source of where you're trying to recruit as well through social media. And so that's our approach. We've got folks who have nothing to do with recruitment per se in the traditional sense. I'm not a recruiter, but I share employer brand content directly to my page as well as open jobs. And so that is kind of a big piece of how we approach promoting employer brand. As far as like getting it out there, in terms of how we go about what we're talking about. I mean, at the end of the day, right, we obviously apply for jobs because we need money and we have things that we need to buy. But the truth is, we often want to put ourselves in a world where we're going to feel the most comfortable, the most successful, and where we think we're going to thrive. So I focus on some really core tenets of our employer brand, that being kudos and reputation. I love talking about our associates and the things that they're achieving on our social. And I want future candidates to know that they will also be celebrated once they come here and start achieving. That's a guarantee that they're going to start achieving, not hoping that they will, because we have great recruiters who bring in great talent. And I'm not just saying that because I think some of them might be watching today. But in addition to that, too, I also focus on things like hiring events, bringing awareness to where we're actually fulfilling your need for hiring on site, and bringing awareness to how we can support our recruitment efforts locally as well. Also, things like our commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That diversity, equity, and inclusion and a commitment to social and environmental causes is actually one of the top things that candidates look for nowadays when it comes to seeking out a potential employer. So it is paramount that we actually get that content out there to talk about our commitments to specific communities, not just in a like theoretical sense, but where we're actually walking the walk, talking the talk, and spending a little bit of money as well. And so that's like a big key to our approach. And then lastly, I'd say another big thing too is outside of making sure we're talking about our culture and what it's like to work here, what are the benefits? Because yes, I know everybody wants to have a place they enjoy working, but what's the give and get, if you will, of being an employee at your brand or your company? And, you know, for us, that's flexibility, that is flexible scheduling, that's a great culture, that's a great PTO policy, that's great awareness centered around mental health. And we're just continuing to expand the way that we provide value and more outcomes. That's also a discount on my skincare. So another great thing that we like to brag about.
I couldn't agree more. Well, what it sounds like to me, some takeaways that I have from that are, you could say you're a diverse workplace all day long. Join our diverse team. We are inclusive.
Absolutely.
But do your future candidates or your ideal candidates see themselves in your existing employees? Do they see themselves in the photos that you're using? I think that's all really valuable when 100%. It comes to social recruiting, is the content you're putting out there. And then something else that I wanted to summarize, because we kind of talked about it in the beginning, and I also felt like it was really important. It was, you're posting on your corporate or your company LinkedIn profile. You're sharing job and employer brand content there. But in addition to that, you're sharing content on personal LinkedIn profiles. So we call that brand ambassadors, employee advocacy. You don't have to be a recruiter, just like you said, to share that content. Anyone in your organization could come to you and say, I'm interested, I want to opt in. Can you share that content on my profile as well? 100%. And that is how you can expand your reach to everybody else's network, like you were saying about the different fields. If I work in Boise, Idaho at an Ulta store, maybe I'm not a recruiter, but if I work there and I'm willing to share open jobs in Boise, Idaho, then anyone in my network that I went to college with, who I went to elementary school with even, Boise is small, they might see what I'm sharing on LinkedIn. So I just wanted to reiterate what William said in the terms that I understand it in, so you could hear kind of both perspectives of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a really great summary.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, moving along. So obviously we can do all of these initiatives, implement a great strategy all day long. But when it comes to employer brand presence on social media, the value that provides is so much more than an Excel report could ever prove. So how do you prove value to your leadership team, or how do you say this is working if you can't always give them a number? What is the value of having that employer brand on social?
Yeah, totally. I think there are a lot of soft and hard benefits to a robust employer brand and social recruitment strategy. And when I say soft benefits, I'm talking about those things that you really have to look for in order to kind of hear the benefits. And so for me, that starts off with word of mouth. What are people saying? What is your reputation? How is your reputation improving online based on the feedback you're getting, whether it's through reviews on Glassdoor or Indoor, or did I just say Glassdoor and Door?
It flowed really well. I knew what you meant. Human things.
What are people saying about your culture through their exit interview when they leave and depart your company as well? What are your recruiters asking was the motivator for somebody to apply when they hit the apply button and got to the interview stage? What actually got them through to want to submit that application? You know, I'm appreciative that I work very closely with our recruiters. And I have been told that on more than one occasion, we have had candidates say that part of the motivation for them applying to work at Ulta Beauty was because they felt like through our employer brand content, and this isn't to pat myself on the back, this is kind of just like an obvious hope that you would want for your brand, right? Is that they thought they saw themselves represented, they saw potential to get recognition for the work that they would be doing, and they liked seeing, dare I just say, the vibe that we have over here at Ulta Beauty. And so there are a lot of soft benefits that you can look at. But in addition to that, there are also harder KPIs and hard benefits that you can look at as well. You know, when you're distributing employer brand content to social channels, you can look at the direct impact that's having on those major KPIs you would look at as any social media manager or analyst would. How is that impacting your engagement rate, your impressions? How many followers are you gaining? How many people are you retaining? Are you actually effectively building an audience on your channel of people who are immediately bought into the story that is your brand and that are just waiting for you to post the opening for the role that they are craving so that they can get their experience with you as a brand and an employer? And, you know, for us too, we also are able to loosely look at the impact that employer brand has on applications as far as what we get from social media. I do track the application rate complete from our social channels, and we've been able to see quite an increase that goes alongside the increase in the employer brand content that we've distributed. I can't necessarily point to a piece of employer brand and say, this was the thing that got this person to apply. Or I can't necessarily say that, hey, you know, this month the employer brand is the direct cause of why we have this many applications. But what we can see and track are trends. And what we can see and track is how much more engagement we got in a time frame where we were being very strategic about the type of content we were putting out. Additionally, too, like I said, impressions and follower gain are important. We've seen a huge increase in the amount of people that we're reaching with our employer brand content. And this makes so much sense because I want everybody to think about this. This is me getting serious. When it comes to distributing jobs and social recruitment pieces, purely content about your roles, we are all often, unless we're trying to pivot, looking for content or jobs that are very specific to us and the things that we like to do and the roles that we look for. Employer brand content is meant to be a little bit more broad and wide encompassing, right? So more people are willing to engage with it and interact with it because it should speak to in many ways, shared experience that your associates and your employees are going to have once they're working for you as a company. And so when we see more engagement with employer brand content as well, just like any other piece of social media, that helps enhance the impressions and engagement that your job postings get as well. So it's all a bit of a cycle that you want to play together. So those are the major KPIs that we like to look at. What are the soft things? What are people saying? How is it improving what people are saying? How is it impacting our employer brand externally? How is that making people feel internally? Is it having a positive impact on the way people feel in their experience and how they're feeling recognized at work and in the workplace? But then also, hey, are you gaining more followers? Are you reaching more people? Those are things you can track. I will also say very quickly on the KPIs from social, for June, we did a lot of Pride Month messaging. Ulta Beauty is a very shameless, proud supporter of the LGBTQ plus community. And I just want to say too, that I was actually able to look at every piece of content we distributed that was centered around our commitment to that community for the month of June. And when I looked at those KPIs, impressions, engagement, we were basically able to directly attribute 30 to 40% of our engagement rate and our comments and our reshares for that month of June to specifically our employer brand content that centered around our advocacy for the LGBTQ plus community, but also celebrating the stories and experiences of our LGBTQ plus employees and associates. So there's a lot of power in that. It works. People want to hear it. And long gone are the days where just saying that you can provide a paycheck is enough.
Amen. Well, congratulations. I know that you put a lot of effort into those campaigns, and I'm glad you were able to see the positive outcomes from that. It really made me think that if I resonate or agree or enjoy the type of messaging or value that a large brand presents online, I am more likely to follow them and want to support them and stay up to date with what they're up to. So if I am following Ulta, which I am, of course, and the right job just so happens to pop up, remote senior client success manager, 500K a year, will I click on that and want to apply to this brand that I've consistently been receiving positive employer brand messaging from for all these years? Probably. So that's where you can really capture a passive audience as well.
And we also know that candidates digitally are not using one source to make decisions when it comes to applying. And that's why the multi-channel approach and the brand ambassador approach is so important and vital, because I want to guarantee that any potential candidate could go on the feed of any of my recruiters or department leaders and not only see the roles that they're hiring for, but also get a glimpse of the culture and the benefit that they could get. So that way, when they jump to our LinkedIn page, they see only even more of that being built out on our page. And then more of that when they get to our career site. I want it to be a multiple, just this ever-growing experience of employer brand and benefit until they hit the apply button, no matter where they land.
Very obvious to find it, very obvious to see what it is.
Exactly.
Consistent messaging. I like that. I think that honestly is a perfect segue into our next piece, which is all about how do we incorporate job posting more specifically to create hiring awareness online. So you really talked about your approach with employer brand posting, but now can you kind of share your approach of how you're sharing jobs organically on social and how that all blends together?
Yeah, it's like I mentioned earlier, I'm able to target specific regions and locations based on the jobs in that area by posting those jobs directly to the recruiters that handle that area or that department when it comes to our corporate recruiters. Same thing with our leadership in the field for our retail stores as well. So one thing that I'm able to do is actually make sure that I'm posting jobs for those specific locations directly to the channels where it makes most sense, where the need is being met, or where the need is needed, I suppose. And then additionally too, you can treat multiple channels differently. LinkedIn, yes, we're posting jobs, but we're also posting a ton of employer brand content because I know that people will get exhausted eventually on a platform like LinkedIn that is popular for thought leadership as well, if all they're seeing are jobs, because then it just looks like that's all you care about. But then there are other platforms that are high volume for posting, like Twitter, where you can get away with just, frankly, dumping whatever you want. And I mean that in the most respectful sense. Twitter has a lower shelf life for their content. Therefore, the model of that platform is high volume, consistent posting. So I use that to provide lots of coverage for all of our roles over a consistent amount of time. So I think every day we're posting up to like 50 jobs a day to Twitter. But that's the name of the game when it comes to that platform and the shelf life of that content.
I couldn't believe a tweet only lasts like 3 minutes.
Yeah. It's like if you grab attention within the 3 minutes, you're golden. It's kind of the same concept with TikTok, except I've also noticed that TikTok, you can kind of wait a minute and your content may flourish later on. My other approach with job content too is that I do my best, and we're continuing to mature this, that our job postings are not limited to the searchable things of just, are you looking to be job title in this searchable location? That is important from a social media like algorithmic perspective. But I also find it strategic to motivate people to apply through these job postings by adding employer brand content into these posts as well. So, for instance, one thing that I've done is I've taken testimonials from, I'll just use this as an example. At Ulta Beauty, you may not keep front of mind the fact that we, as an online e-commerce retailer and digital platform as well, with an app and everything, have a robust tech team, both digital team and tech team. And women disproportionately haven't been represented in the tech industry the way they should be. And that can be a challenge when you are a female predominant company like Ulta Beauty. So it's important that we actually put forward a message and the perspective that is true, which is that we have really great, talented women working in technology here at Ulta Beauty. Not only do you belong here, but also, by the way, just a reminder, you can work in the tech space for a retailer like Ulta Beauty as well, and still flex those technical skills. You don't just have to be in, why can't I think of, where are all the tech places in San Francisco? What am I, Silicon Valley.
I was in San Francisco.
San Francisco. So, I just want to say that first and foremost. And that's also a way that we get to, again, celebrate the experiences of a lot of our associates too, is getting an idea of like what it is that matters to them and how their identity applies to the roles that they do, and letting that speak for itself in our job content. Quick little testimonial cards, a picture of that person, a blurb about their experience, and then it's out there for other people to see and relate to. And it also doesn't have to be that curated. Like when we talk about employer brand and job content, it does not always have to be this like well-curated video, this long form video, or these like really nice pictures. Oftentimes it can just be done in your caption, right? Like talking about a benefit that can come along with applying for this job. It can also be if you have hiring bonuses or things like that that make that more attractive, putting those in your captions as well. Talking about your culture or recent awards. I know at Ulta Beauty, we were recognized for being a top diversity employer in the United States. We've also been recognized as being a top employer for women and for the LGBTQ plus community. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but these are things that I can talk about in our job postings that I don't have to make anything other than a sentence to go out with this post. Are you interested in working for a company that has a proven world-class culture? Apply for this job today. We've seen it in Newsweek. Here it is, And so I think that that's a really important part of the employer brand piece as well, is that you should be finding a way to integrate it into everything, and not just, it shouldn't always feel like your content is job posting, employer brand, product. It should feel like those things all play together.
They don't have to be in separate buckets. I call it a 2-for-1.
Yep.
You can have a 2-for-1 special, employer branding in your job caption with a link to the job. Boom, you just did it all in one.
100%.
Sometimes they stand alone, but hopefully you're all getting a good idea of how you can do them separately and together. And I think William and I would both agree a healthy blend of that is going to be the secret recipe. One thing I always love talking to William about these things. One thing I'd love to know more about is hashtags. Please tell the people what they should and should not be doing with hashtags.
Look, I'll make this quick. I'll make it painless. The data shows hashtag hiring and hashtag now hiring is ineffective. I'm going to explain to you why. Okay,
no more.
Real quick. I have a secret for you. Everyone and their brother, their sister, their cousin, their sibling is hiring. And so hashtags are meant to help make your content more deliverable based on interest, and also searchable based on those tags. So if I just look up hiring on LinkedIn or any social platform, I am going to be inundated with posts that have nothing to do with me. But if you're instead hashtagging for the user experience, what kind of role they're looking for, marketing careers, employer brand, marketer jobs, things like that, and you're hashtagging those and using that, your posts become more searchable for your target audience. The impressions may appear slightly lower because the audience is more curated, but you're better enhancing the quality of the candidate that you're trying to reach. And again, the data shows hashtag hiring and hashtag now hiring out the door. That is very 2020. We are in 2023 now. We're moving past that.
Thank you so much. I can speak for myself that in my 30 plus years of life, I have never typed in hiring while I was searching for a job.
Not a single time.
So if you're doing that, stop doing it. And if you're my client, let's delete those from the dashboard. I will help you.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Sorry for yelling. Okay. Moving on. So now that we've talked about specific hashtags, I think that really does help us flow into the next question I wanted to ask, which was about how do you solve for region or department specific needs? Hashtags might be a part of that.
Yeah, I think I've touched on this a little bit, but first and foremost, it's about making sure you're posting content at the channels that are like, dare I say, on the ground there, right? So for us, it's those taking advantage of those brand ambassadors that are on location and serving that community or that area. I implore all of you after this to go scroll through your social media. It doesn't matter. It could be Twitter, it could be LinkedIn, it could be Instagram. And you're going to notice that on your feed, your pages will tell you you're being shown this because so-and-so liked it, because it's like content you typically engage with, because so-and-so reposted or shared it, or we recommend this to you, check out this person. Your social media is actually telling you why they're showing you the content that is good for you, but you didn't ask for, because that's the point of social media. And that's also the point of delivering content to people in that network. So if the post is going out from somebody in Los Angeles, I'm choosing that as an example, it's where I live, then it's more likely that people geofenced within Los Angeles will see that content, not only because it's coming from me located in LA, but also because my connections more likely are also from my immediate local network. So that's one big thing. Two is developing content specific for that area. If people, I'll use an example. We just did a big hiring thing for our new distribution center and market fulfillment center in Greer, South Carolina. Now, Greer, South Carolina is a bit smaller of a community, but it's between two larger communities in South Carolina. I'm from North Carolina originally, so I felt very effective in setting all this up. But a big piece of the recruitment success for that was we actually spent a lot of time curating content about why people would want to relocate to Greer as a location. So if you have areas that need roles fulfilled and it's just not a, high traffic area, it's not a Los Angeles, it's not a Charlotte, it's not a Seattle, it's not a Chicago, right? You also want to make sure you're telling the story of why people would want to locate to that community. Not everybody wants to live in the big city. I'm just going to throw that out there. Not everybody wants to pay high rent for tiny apartments like I do, and that's okay. Some people want to live in smaller rural or suburban communities, and they are looking for the opportunities there. They're looking for those selling points. So social media also makes it to where you can talk about fulfilling those areas based on the locations you want people to move to as well. Yeah, I hope that.
Thank you.
I
I think that was perfect. You nailed it. Okay, so moving along, I think this is also something that probably brought a lot of people here today. So this is what I always say. Explain it to me, explain it to us, like we are 5 years old. And from the top, what is your strategy when it comes to executing all of this? If somebody wanted to get started today, where do I go first?
If you're wanting to start today, there are two things I'm going to say you're going to need to do first. One, who are your stakeholders that can help you curate your content or like help you come up with the stories you want to tell? Is it your benefits department? Is it your education department? Is it your DE&I folk? Is it your marketing team? Who can best help you understand the story that needs to be told that's not currently being executed? I would also say these stakeholders can also help you identify a problem or a challenge you're having in recruitment, and you can use your employer brand to hopefully overcome those challenges as well. A negative review is an opportunity to correct things and to do better in the future, right? And your employer brand can help address that, or rather than that, fix the reputation or control the narrative externally as well. So think about those things. My other thing would be not just who is going to help you and what are you going to post about, but where are you going to post it, right? Do you have the channel set up? It is free 99 to set up social channels. And oftentimes I get met with this idea of like, we can't start from zero. Well, one thing I want to tell you is that you don't have to have followers to have your content seen on social media, right? It's going to get delivered to someone no matter what. You can start a TikTok account today, post a video, and people will see it because these platforms are incentivized by keeping you hooked, by getting you views and attention. I mean, let's just talk about it. That is what social media is meant to do. But additionally, the search engine component of social media is very important too. People will search out your content, or social will read your content and deliver it to people they think share that common interest. That's a really important thing to think about. And additionally, if you are starting channels from scratch, you don't have existing infrastructure to distribute. If you have the budget for it, you can run follower campaigns to build up your network based on interest and location. So if you're starting a curated Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn page for your employer brand and your culture, and you have $1,000, $2,000 to run a follower campaign to get to that 1,000 follower threshold, something simple, an obtainable goal. It can be worth your while. There are a lot of ways to be able to start from scratch, but really the key to social media, like anything in marketing, is you have to try. You have to experiment. You have to A/B test. You have to be willing to fail. That goes with any creative endeavor, any marketing endeavor. I don't know where we lost the narrative that every single thing you're going to do is going to succeed every time, and it's always going to be a J curve of up and up result. We're humans. Social media changes. What captivates people changes. And so I'm going to tell you, you need to have a willingness to fail and a willingness to continue to try off of that failure. I have not gotten here because I just succeed at everything I do. What is not being told today is the story of the many things I put on the internet that nobody cared about. But it helped me better understand what people were looking for, and it has made me a much more effective storyteller today. And so those are going to be my big things. Who wants to get engaged? What are you going to tell? And where are you going to put it? And then the last thing too I'm going to say, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, is that people care about the stories of your associates. If there's one thing I want to challenge today, it's this old school concept that people just want a paycheck and they just want their benefits. No, people want to know that they're going to be valued and celebrated at their workplace. They want to know that they're going to be able to advocate for themselves, and they want to know that they're walking to a culture where they can thrive and work well in. And if you're not putting forward an employer brand story, you are actually doing yourself a disservice, because there are so many ways to do it cost effective, and it's going to infringe on the quality and the total number of candidates you're getting on any given day.
I imagine that bleeds into retaining existing employees as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so to wrap this up, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
Hope everyone is still with us. I've been enjoying our conversation, but let's talk about the elephant in the room. The truth is, not every company and not everyone listening today has all the resources or the William dedicated employer branding team that Ulta has. So what would your advice be to them who might not have a lot of resources?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to reiterate something I mentioned earlier, which is that your employer brand content does not have to be overly sophisticated. TikTok in particular has really brought back the power of organic, authentic, vertical phone storytelling. So if you want an employer brand piece, you can go like this, plop your phone down in front of you, record it, 30 to 60 seconds, and get it out there. That's one thing I want to say is anybody can make employer brand content, and you can make it easy for them by not overthinking or over explaining what the end product has to be like. Nobody wants to get on camera if they feel like they have to be perfect. But the beauty of employer brand is that you don't want people to be perfect. You want people to be authentic. So that should take some of the anxiety. Exactly. So that should take some of the anxiety out of making content. Additionally, Natalie, you said something earlier that I absolutely want to reiterate, which is that you likely have value proposition gold all over your career site, hopefully. You have things to be talking about already. The copy and paste button is there. You know, if you copied and pasted it from your career site to your page on LinkedIn, I'm probably not going to realize. I would have to be digging pretty deep. But additionally, that is what it's there for. So I would just say, try not to get into your own way, and just know that you can find bite-sized ways to get employer brand messaging out there without a whole team, and even without a designated person. If you have somebody running your social, you can just set up goals for how many times a week or a month you want them to post something that is employer brand focused rather than just consumer or product focused. Now, over time, you're going to want to build out more support for them, because social media managers are already overworked and undervalued as it is. But that is a webinar for another day. I just think that the more you create a culture where people are invested in the culture you have, they will also want to participate in getting the message out there. So like I said, a big key to our messaging is our brand ambassadors. It's our people. It's not even just our LinkedIn page, right? It's actually getting more people involved. A really shocking number of employees already share content about their about the place they work. When I first started working at Ulta Beauty, I saw it all over the place. We had regional managers, general managers, district managers wanting to advocate for why they love Ulta Beauty so much, rightfully so, and to get people to apply to work in their stores. And because I already knew that this was a want, I was able to actually fulfill that for them through an automated tool and system. Spoiler, we use CareerArc. But that's my other point too, is that it gets easier for you over time to have less people overseeing the employer brand game, or at least the execution of an employer brand strategy, if you're willing to invest in the tools necessary to do it. You don't have to have a bunch of fancy and robust tools, but think about where you are in your strategy and where you're willing to put your money. Because at the end of the day, solutions, they do sometimes cost a little bit of money, and they can just make things a lot easier. So yeah,
Automating.
that's what I would say. Oh, and ChatGPT. Ask ChatGPT to talk about why you're the best place to work and copy and paste your website URL. It'll use your language and your branding. I don't do that, but people can.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also a great jumping off point. It's an idea generator. So if you don't like what it spits out, maybe it's just giving you an idea of some call to action you could add in your captions, and then you edit that to match your brand guidelines. And it's just a jumping off point if you don't copy and paste directly.
Absolutely.
One thing I did want to add to what you were saying, now that we're kind of at the end here, something that I say to a lot of my clients is, if your marketing team has a lot of red tape for you, or if your marketing team is very, this is their job to be, if they're very focused on driving business, then who is driving candidate flow? It's usually on the TA team or the employer brand team. So if your company doesn't have marketing focusing on employer branding, and they don't have an employer brand team focusing on employer branding, then the TA team, I do encourage you at some point to come together. I'd say it's 50-50 who I work with. I sometimes work with Williams, employer brand dedicated people, but the other 50% of the time I'm working with director of TA, I'm working with TA
HR
managers.
professionals,
They meet with me regularly, and we may use that 30 minutes as a working session to say, let's create 10 new captions to go out with your jobs that speak to your employer brand.
Totally.
So if you're listening and you're like, I don't have any of these resources, just know that there are so many small ways for you to implement this in a way that will work well for you.
100%.
Let's jump into this Q&A. It looks like we have 4 questions actually. One just came in and maybe more will come in. So let's get to it. First question is, who should own employer brand strategy?
Yeah, I think that is dependent on your company and the resources and the people that you have. For me, I'm not even technically like the sole determiner of our employer brand strategy. I work with a lot of stakeholders to identify what our employer brand needs are. And then I'm really like the coordinator and executor. And I do help identify need as well. But I would say that if you don't have someone like me who's dedicated to employer brand and recruitment marketing, you should be engaging, again, your other stakeholders, your hiring managers, your leaders, your HR professionals, the people who are actively on the people side of your business, who should be looking at the data of the experience of your employees. Those are the people you should be engaging to understand employer brand and your value proposition, because they oversee it. So it's kind of twofold. There's the active being an employee perspective, but then there's also the attraction perspective and the give and get perspective.
Awesome. All right, go on to the next one here. Do you provide training or direction to your managers to help them create or post content?
That's a really good question, actually. So one thing that I do, a lot of the distribution of content I have automated for ease of use. However, not everybody likes automation. A lot of some of our recruiters and a lot of our field leadership, they're very involved in their LinkedIn and their image. And so they just want to have the everything that they need, the resources to continue doing that and being a good steward to our brand while they do it. And so I provide a lot of training and thought leadership on social media best practices, what to and not to say. If you're ever about to post something on the internet about Ulta Beauty and you're like, am I allowed to say that? Usually they ask me first. But then additionally too, I provide templates and templatized social media postings so that anybody who wants to get in the employer brand and recruitment game can curate content specific to their needs and their messaging that is branded and hits the best practices, and they can just fill in the blanks they need and then publish and post. So I provide training in that aspect as well. And then in the same vein too, when we're looking at recruitment needs that have like an employer brand kind of challenge in certain areas, I usually come in to say, like, what is the challenge in this area? Is it the role that we're hiring for? Is it the location? And what story do we need to build around that to solve? And so sometimes it's a lot of thought leadership as well. And then I work as a collaborator on how we can actually come up with new messaging to overcome that challenge.
Awesome. Love that. Natalie, anything to add?
No, I always say that William William and I are quite aligned because we're both Virgo risings.
Love that.
True.
Perfect. Our next question. Okay. So our company is a third-party merchandising company, and we're not allowed to showcase our products or our partnerships on social media. The majority of our posts are targeted toward internal employees and maybe friends and family. We are not currently using social media as a recruiting tool. Do you have any recommendations for content that we could post to assist in recruiting, but also establish and strengthen our employer presence? I'll just add quickly, by the way, with the recording, we actually do have a lookbook that has some examples of what you could do, but I'm sure also William has a ton more to add to that. So I just wanted to call that out, that you will get examples after as well.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this lookbook, so I'm going to suggest you look at that. But additionally, one thing I'll say too is that if you can't talk about, I'm rereading your question to make sure I address it correctly, Lauren, but it sounds like you can't talk product, can't talk partnerships, but it does sound like you can at least talk people. And so it sounds like you're doing a lot of conversations about, you said, internal, it's more geared towards internal employees. The good news is the things that you want to brag about to your internal employees, prospective employees would also probably like to hear as well. So you can turn a lot of those things into content too, but I would focus more on your actual employees and their stories and their experiences working for you if you need to get around or circumvent product and partnership centered questions or content. You know, we do a lot of highlighting our associates and talking about their experiences and just getting a testimonial from them about the work they do and the culture they experience here at Ulta. And so my suggestion would be focus on them and selling your employees as something that other people would want to work with, if that makes sense.
Yep, totally.
I also recognize your name, Lauren. And so if you do want to dive into this in more detail with me and other Natalie, who I'm sure you've worked with in the past, we can help you kind of add some employer brand strategy into your captions, like with your job postings. That can be a really good, easy win for you. And then anything that you post about, like meet our merchandisers or meet our team, kind of like what William was saying, that can all be automated in the tool as well. So I think there's a lot of untapped areas that we could drill into more with you.
Perfect. This one's a fun question. William, what's your favorite hashtag?
Okay, I saw this and I want to say one thing first and foremost. My favorite hashtags are not going to be the most effective and strategic hashtags. And I just want to say that before I answer this question. My favorite hashtags, though, are always ones that are like curated towards your brand and are, let's say, like fun and clever. They're like, I often will say it's a branded or a vanity hashtag in the sense that maybe it's not going to aid in search, but like it's fun, it's brand building, it's brand communication, etc. You know, so for instance, one that I always toy around with from the Ulta perspective is like hashtag join the Ultaverse. You know, like the metaverse is such a big thing right now, and like just the conversation around multiple universes is big in popular media. And so taking advantage of that and applying it to Ulta, I think it's fun and it's clever. And then on the flip side of that too, I used to work with a client at CareerArc called Gettinga, and I was literally like, we are missing an opportunity here because your hashtag should be hashtag getting a job. Duh. Like that's clever, it's funny, it's literally your company name. Now, my favorite hashtags though, from a like use standpoint, are the ones that are effective and searchable. You know, it's the ones that are clear cut and they're based in the user experience. What is a user searching for online from a strategy perspective? So my favorite are the fun ones that are clever, but my real favorite ones, the ones I gear towards, are the strategic ones, the ones that are more searchable.
I agree. I always tell people it's great to have that custom employer branding hashtag and also have the job specific or the
Totally.
location specific hashtag. So my favorite example is we're not going to do hashtag engineers, hashtag marketing. We
No,
would
too
rather
broad.
you do hashtag technical engineer,
Mhm,
hashtag sustainable engineer. There's so many engineers, right?
mhm.
Hashtag graphic designer. Marketing
Yep,
is huge. So what
yep.
am I looking for? What would you look for when you're
Mhm.
Googling a job, when you're going on social media to find a job? That's your hashtag.
100%.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Awesome. And one last question before we wrap it up here. If any more come in, we'll definitely get an answer back to you. But I think for the sake of this session and maybe some meetings at the top of the hour, this last question is, do you suggest that the LinkedIn page becomes a career page with its tabs?
This is such a good question, actually, because I think that I want to first off say this. Everyone treats LinkedIn, in my opinion, incorrectly because everyone assumes that LinkedIn is just for jobs. And I wanted to let everyone on here know that there are almost as many college degree holding users on Instagram as there are on LinkedIn. And the reason I say that is because if all you're doing is job posting and job thought leadership on LinkedIn, you're doing yourself a disservice because that's not actually the only thing people like to engage with. And not everybody in your target audience is going to necessarily be like a college educated user looking for corporate roles. There's actually a huge audience on LinkedIn that is also looking for hourly skilled labor, trade labor, etc. So I just wanted to call that out. Now, but Maria, to your point, your LinkedIn page can actually solve for a lot of things. So your LinkedIn page allows for one, you get to talk about your company. There's the about section. It can also redirect to your career site. We do that on ours as well. But you've also got the life tab. And under the life tab, you can actually compartmentalize talking about the experience for different departments. That's something that we take advantage of on the Ulta Beauty page. The retail experience versus the distribution center experience versus the tech experience. You know, like we want to make sure we differentiate that under our life tab. Additionally, LinkedIn also lets you take advantage of user-generated content from your brand by activating curated hashtags so that content from, let's say your CMO is celebrating a post for their recognition and they post hashtag my brand marketing. If you apply that to your life page on LinkedIn, it can actually generate that content under your gallery, under your marketing page when people go to see it. So I think that LinkedIn should be treated like other social media platforms in the sense that if it's all business, nobody wants to have anything to do with it, right? So you've got to kind of find that balance. And LinkedIn allows for a lot of features, including showcase pages, which will allow you to talk about special projects or sub functions or sub brands of your business as well. And I really recommend you take advantage of all of those. But, you know, I'm a big fan of the mullet method. You know, you can have a little bit of business in the front, but you got to have plenty of party in the back. Otherwise, people are going to get bored.
I can kind of what is the word I'm looking for? Of course, I blank here at the very end. I want to add to what you were just saying, in that you can, if you don't have a strong career site, you can take the link of your life tab. If that is built out on LinkedIn and that looks all good and beautiful, you can create a custom piece of content linking people to your life tab as well. So if you're like, career site doesn't look very good, or, you know, we don't have the resources, the LinkedIn tab could be an easy win for you as well. And then land
100%.
people there in custom content. Yeah. Love the life tab. It's a recommendation that I always give. So if you don't have one, talk to whoever the admin is of your LinkedIn page. And I think that can get added on there pretty easily. Any other questions, Christina?
Perfect. Actually, none came in. So I think we're all set to wrap up here. First of all, thank you, William and Natalie, for sharing your insights. And then thank you for everyone who's able to join. Also, whoever's watching this recording as well after the fact. Really appreciate you. Hope you learned something. And we have a survey that pops up after you X out of this. So let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. Our sessions can only improve if you let us know. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. I had fun.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.